Hello, good morning, welcome. Kaya Wanju. I'd like to start this meeting by stating that I am speaking to you from Burulu on Noongar Budja, and I pay my respects to the Whadjuk Nation and their elders past and present. I'd also like to extend my respect to the lands, the custodians of the lands on which you all are meeting on today, and also to anybody online today from First Nations backgrounds. My name is Amanda Nardi-Wallace. I am the Assistant Director of Strategic Projects and Crisis here at NOPSEMA, and I'm here to facilitate you through the next Resource Management Administration Regulations information session. And today's session is going to be looking at the guidance on the Part 5 changes. It would be great if everyone could try and keep their microphones on mute throughout the session. I will open up to questions at the end and we can go through that today. The session is going to be recorded and there is a chat that is available throughout the session. If you have questions along the way that you would like to write down, please pop them into the chat and we can get to them at the end. Alternatively, save them for the question session. So this is the second session of our series of information sessions that we'll be holding on the changes to the RMA regulations. They commence on the 31st of March 2026, and you can find the January session online on our NOPSEMA's dedicated page, which will give you the general overview of the regulations and their changes. Today, we're going to deal a little bit more in depth into the WOMP requirements that are changing, incident reporting, and the annual well integrity reporting. We have another session locked in for February 25th, and that's where we will also try to get to anything that we haven't really addressed so far and helping everybody get ready for the March 31st go live date. Additionally, today, I'd also like to welcome our well integrity team onto here. We've got multiple members of our well integrity specialists, and we've also got the leadership of the well integrity team joining us today. So I'm going to hand over now to Fiona to introduce the team. Thanks, Fiona.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Fiona Mitchell-Corbett, and I'm the Executive Director for Regulatory Operations, Well Integrity and Risk-Based Regulation at NOPSEMA. Before we dive into some details around the upcoming RMA Regulations remake, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself and the Well Integrity leadership team. As Executive Director, I lead our national regulatory approach to well integrity across the full life cycle of offshore wells, from design to construction, operation, suspension, and abandonment, ensuring risks are managed to alarm. The Well Integrity team forms a core part of the Regulatory Operations Division and is central to delivering this remit. Also joining us today are our two newly appointed Directors of Well Integrity, Claudio Pellegrini and Stephen Best. Stephen is leading the West team, while Claudio is leading the East team. I know they share my enthusiasm for meeting and working closely with all title holders over the coming weeks and months as we move through this important period of regulatory change through the RMA remake. And also, more broadly, as we continue on NOPSEMA's journey as a risk-based regulator. On a personal note, it's great to be here. My background is in process safety and risk, and I'm delighted to bring that experience to supporting the safe management of well integrity risks across the offshore life cycle. I look forward to meeting many of you, strengthening our engagement, and ensuring that the integrity of offshore wells is maintained from end to end. And with that, I'll hand back to Amanda.
Thanks very much, Fiona. Okay, just to cap what we're going to be going into a bit more details today is going through the changes to the WOMP, so around the new inclusions, the new acceptance criteria, the concept design and competency assurance around WOMPs. Additionally, we're going to be looking at the reporting, so the changes to the 3 and 30-day reporting requirements, and finally the new annual well integrity report. I'd like to ask you to please hold your questions to the end of the session when we have the dedicated Q&A. If you do have anything along the way, please pop it into the chat. But now I will introduce Miles, our well integrity specialist, who's going to talk through the slides for us today. Thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for that. So Part 5 of the new RMA regulations, you'll see the title there saying makes explicit what was previously implicit. These regulations reference parts of the Act which weren't referenced before, specifically sections 569 and 570. They're an important part in this, certainly in the abandonment of the wells. There's also a reminder that the WOMP, or the Well Operations Management Plan, goes for the full life cycle of the well, from the construction of the well through to the production and implementation, and finally through to the abandonment. So moving forward to the next stage. Next slide, please, Amanda. There are two major parts of the regulations that refer to the WOMP. Section 81, which is criteria for acceptance, and Section 82, which covers what's required within it. You'll see that in Section 81, there's now a requirement for wells not only to be of a similar risk, but also that the monitoring and control measures be similar. So, for example, if you have a platform and subsea wells, is the monitoring similar, or should they be under separate WOMPs? Section 81 also gives a clearer link to the activities and contents of the plan. This relates to the description of the well activities and also to the description or the well basis of design or concept select. And finally, 81D, you will notice that the plan not only has to demonstrate that the risks are allowed, but they are also acceptable. Now, this is a new part, so this is being carefully considered by NOPSEMA, and we'll be working with industry to give a decision on what exactly that means. Next slide, please. So when we look at the contents of the WOMP, the description of the well activities is much the same, but now we also have the basis of design or concept select, which gives us far greater information about the well. That enables NOPSEMA to understand what processes are appropriate, as well as what standards will be appropriate for the construction and operation of the well. The basis of design is useful in that it gives us a risk register. That risk register starts with the basis of design or concept select, and allows us to understand what risks have been identified and how they will be addressed during the life of the well. And next slide, please. Now, I mentioned previously that we have the processes which the basis of design or concept select will be addressing. Part of these processes require the acceptance criteria. You'll notice that in the previous regulations, we had 5091D to G, which caused some confusion as to exactly what it meant. This has been rewritten and now is in what we might call industry parlance and is relatively straightforward to understand what's required. This has also been set so that it will help with well acceptance criteria. This is something that is being used by more and more companies, so it lays out exactly the acceptance criteria for different stages of the well. This is especially useful when we look at the abandonment. There's an example given below of a well acceptance criteria where we look at the well outcome, which is the confirmation the casing is appropriate to use as a barrier. What will be the control measure, pressure testing the casing? What performance standard defines that, the drilling barrier qualification standard? The acceptance criteria, as I said, pressure testing according to that standard. And finally, the verification of the evidence, which is a pressure test chart designed by a qualified person. This is found to be very useful within the abandonment of wells because it gives a very clear indication of the criteria that have been met to meet the abandonment. So moving to the next slide, please. We now have an additional requirement for competency. Originally, the competency only looked at the service companies, but now it also includes the title holders. Now, we should also point that this is not a global requirement, but is focused on personnel who plan, approve, or execute any stage of the well's life cycle. Examples of this for the title holder would be the senior drilling engineer, drilling superintendent, or drilling engineer. And for the service companies, you'd have the mud logger, and for the drilling companies, the driller, assistant driller. So it is people who are involved in the executing of the operation and planning of the operation. Next slide, please. So in this one, there's a new requirement that when the well activity is notified to NOPSEMA, anything that may change the standards or performance standards or barrier elements used to maintain the integrity of the well must be informed about. An example for that might be if you were changing out a subsurface safety valve, which is now operated not by hydraulics, but possibly by electronics. Again, this will be in a case-by-case as each one comes through. You will also notice that NOPSEMA may request additional information. Now, that request must be in writing and state what's required, but if the title holder has not begun the activity, the well activity can't begin until NOPSEMA has been provided that information. And if the title holder has begun the activity, the written information must be provided to NOPSEMA within a reasonable period of time. For 5A, we would recommend that when activities are happening, that the title holder maintains contact with NOPSEMA to ensure that both of sides agree that the well activity, that there's no change to it, and there's not going to be questions asked that might delay the activity. Next slide, please. This one is another change to when well activity has been notified to NOPSEMA, if there's a material change. So materially accurate means that the technical and safety information provided is correct to a degree that allows NOPSEMA to make an informed decision. So what might materially accurate be? Again, this will be on a case-by-case as we look at it, but an example might be that you're going to carry out a slickline operation, and that's what you inform NOPSEMA, but when you get further details about the well, you decide you're going to use cold tubing. That might be described as not being materially accurate. Next slide, please. Reporting. So originally we've had the 3 and 30-day report, but I also point out that we now have the additional requirement to report damage or failure to well-related equipment that is used to monitor or verify the integrity of the well. Therefore, if gauges, for example, monitoring the annular pressure of a well fail, that would be a reportable incident. This 3-day report still stands. However, under the newer regulation, if that 3-day report does not close out the investigation, then the title holder is required to give a 30-day report. But this 30-day report is a rolling report. So after 30 days, if the report or if the incident is not closed out, the title holder must carry on giving another 30-day report on the anniversary of the original submission of the 3-day report. There's also a new regulation that now defines the time for retention of the report. The title holder has only to retain a copy for a period of 5 years. Originally, that was totally undefined, so now we have a specific time to retain information. Next slide, please. The annual integrity report. This is, we think, relatively straightforward, and at the moment we're drafting a template, which we think will be quite simple, that will be put out to industry for discussion in the relatively near future. We should also point out that this is going to be retrospective, but that I think is covered in a later slide. Anyhow, we will be giving this draft template out to industry quite soon. Next slide, please. Just a reminder about the transitional arrangements. If a revision of the WAMP was accepted under the old regulations and is still being is submitted under the old regulations and is still being assessed before or during the transition, it carries on being assessed according to the old regulations. If a revision of a WOMP that was accepted under the old regulations submitted on after 31st of March, it will be assessed under the new regulations. And any new WOMP submitted to NOPSEMA and were unable to complete the assessment before the 31st of March, NOPSEMA will then have to assess under the remade regulations. And of course, WOMPs accepted under the old regulations will continue to remain in force and be administered according to old regulations. And finally, the part, as I mentioned earlier, about the annual well report, that has to be retrospective to WOMPs that were accepted before this date, the 31st of March. So if you have a WOMP that's been accepted before the 31st of March, then you will need to prepare to have the annual well integrity report for submission. Next slide, please. And I think at this point, I hand back to Amanda.
Excellent. Thank you, Miles. So we've covered the main topics that we're going through today. What we are continuing to do here at NOPSEMA is updating our guidance materials and our information that we have available to you on our website. We will look to get out with our initial consultation by the end of the month, which will be looking at the revised guidance that we're putting out and the draft template that we're using for the annual well integrity report. So you'll have the opportunity to provide comments through our website, in the same way that NOPSEMA normally puts out our consultation. We will have links to that consultation available on the dedicated page that we have set up for the RMA regulations. On that page as well is where we're putting all of the FAQs and the information sessions as we've recorded them and we put them online. If there's something there that we haven't provided information on yet and we can do, please do reach out to us. We always encourage you to make contact with your focal points here at NOPSEMA to discuss questions directly related to your specific area of operation. However, we will endeavour to try and communicate everything that we can onto the website in the FAQs and in our future session. So the next session that we have at this stage is the 25th of February, coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll look to go through things that we still haven't provided sufficient clarity on and address any FAQs that come through. When we get to that time, if it looks like we still need to have another session, we will look to put another one in towards the end of March in time for the new regulations to come out. As we mentioned in the last session, these regulations apply to both us as a regulator and also to NOPTA as the regulator. So if you have questions specifically in relation to NOPTA, please reach out directly to them, and they do have their webpage, which I've provided the link for here, where they've got their guidelines and fact sheets and forms out for consultation as well. So I'm going to open it up to questions now. We have a number of our members of the well integrity team here with us this morning who can assist, and Miles will assist as well. And we have the leadership team, as Fiona introduced at the start. What I will please ask is, if you are asking a question, can you please just let us know your name and your organisation? Just helps give us some context on where you're coming from when we do answer the questions. So I do have one question already online from Miles from Brunel Energy. And just seeing, sorry, I had another one pop up. If we have an operations phase 1 revision, 5-year or RIP, submitted post 1st of April and assessed under the new regulations, will we need to include concept select details, or will NOPSEMA grant exception to exclude those particulars? Okay. Miles, would you like to take that one?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear it. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, certainly. So if we have an operations phase 1 revision, 5-year or ROP, submitted post 1 April and assessed under the new regulations, will we need to include concept select details, or will NOPSEMA grant exception to exclude those particulars?
That's something we're still working on at the moment, but I think that for a production WOMP, which is what I understand you're asking about, that it will be information on the well operating envelope that would be required would be the result of the construction of the well or the end of well report after the well's drilled. But that's something that, thank you for that, we will take that offline as well.
Yeah, hi Miles, can you hear me okay? Hello?
Miles,
Yes, that question was from myself, Mike Haig from
oh, sorry, Mike,
Woodside.
yes.
Yeah, no, all good. Just to be clear on that, Miles, yes. Because the new regs require concept select details, and typically our operations phase WOMPs don't include that information. Now that they're going to be assessed under the new regs, will we need to effectively populate those operations phase WOMPs with, legacy concept select data, or will we get an exemption to exclude those particulars? That was the question. Apologies if it was not worded well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. As I said, I don't think
Miles.
it will be the detailed concept select, as some of these wells are quite old, but we will be looking at something that would define the operating parameters of the well now in the production phase.
Okay, all good. Thanks for that, Miles. Appreciate it.
Okay, sorry, did we have somebody else speak for that to add a comment on top of Miles?
Oh, no, that's fine, Amanda. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so the next question I have here is from Jeanette Gordon from Jadestone is, can I clarify going forward, 14 days after the anniversary of an accepted WOMP, an annual well integrity report will need to be submitted?
That's correct.
Hi, this is Jeanette. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure, Jeanette, go ahead.
Which is, I believe you said, Miles, that you were going to supply a template to cover exactly what that integrity report is meant to share. Is that correct as well?
Absolutely correct.
Yes, and we'll be looking to have that go out as part of the consultation, Jeanette. So by the end of the month, we're hoping to have the draft of that out there. And so if you keep an eye on the RMA webpage, you'll see when that's out and available for comment as well.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Amanda. Thanks, Miles.
Okay, the next question I have here is from Radic. I'm not sure where you're from, sorry. Is it NOPSEMA's expectation that title holders submit WOMPs in stages? Is a concept select WOMP expected to be submitted for assessment prior to submission of the full WOMP?
Amanda, I might take that one.
Thanks,
It's
Fiona.
Fiona here. No, so it's not our expectation that the title holder submit a concept select WOMP as part of a WOMP in stages submission. So that is currently an option available to title holders for WOMP assessment, but it is not at all our requirement that a separate concept select WOMP is submitted.
Thank you, Fiona. Okay, I have another question here online from Ali. We have, for section 98, if material changes are included in the WOMP as a contingency, is consultation still required? That's from Shell. Do I have a taker for that one from NOPSEMA?
98. Updating information on well activity. So can you repeat the question again, please, Amanda?
Certainly. If material changes are included in the WOMP, as a contingency, is consultation still required?
So 98 is material changes to a well activity, not to a WOMP. So if you're going to make material changes to the way you design or the standards to your well, you would need to submit a new WOMP.
Sorry, Miles, it's Ali. So the example you gave was if we did a material change from slickline to CT. So if we had included that in the WOMP as an activity, as a contingency, so a plug could be run with slickline or a plug could be run with CT and then risk that appropriately, would that require consultation? because we
That
chose
I
that
presume would
consultancy?
be part of the original assessment of the WOMP. It's the change in the when you inform NOPSEMA about a change, well activity, and then you make a material change to that well activity. So as you say, if you've already got a process in place that's been assessed, then you'll be able to explain that those have been assessed and would be part of the WOMP. Again, it's making sure that the focal point for the for Shell in this case would be contacted so it could be discussed up front to make sure that the changes weren't considered to be materially different.
Okay, cool. So like so things that weren't included as contingencies would be in that.
I think so.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's all of the online questions I've got at the moment. Open up to anybody who wants to come forward, put their hand up for a question.
That's Keith Brand, Amplitude Energy. You mentioned you're writing a guideline. So considering the 1st of April deadline, when is your guideline going to be published? Or when will we expect to receive it?
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, so you mentioned to start with that you are preparing a guideline for the WOMP?
Yes.
For the new RMA guides. So when are we going to expect to see that, given that the 1st of April is when everything comes into force?
The answer is quite soon. So I'm just noticing that the hand signals in the other room. The guidance note has been revised and is being reviewed internally. So I expect that to go out relatively shortly.
Stephen, did I want to throw to you?
Yes, yeah, we might just add a bit of additional clarification. Stephen, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so as Miles said, it's a revision of the current guidance. So we're basically revising what we already have. We're currently reviewing that internally, and we're hoping to have it out for public consultation possibly end of next week.
Yes, Mike, I'll throw to you.
Yes, yeah, Mike Haig, Woodside again. Look, not a question as such. It was mentioned at the first webinar, and again, I am finding these webinars useful. This one has definitely been useful, but again, we just wanted to make the comment from the DISC steering group or working group, should I say. That we are still very keen to meet, have an in-person session, a working session to maybe go through these guidance notes and run through some of these scenarios prior to the implementation of the new regs. So again, it was just to kind of highlight that, Miles and the rest of the folks there. That's all it was.
I'll put that back to Fiona and
throw that to Fiona and Stephen in the room there.
Yes, no, very much so. Thank you, Mike, for bringing that up again. No, it's certainly our intention to engage with DISC and on this matter. We'll be looking to get something in calendars as soon as possible on that, hopefully in the next few weeks.
Yep.
And if not early March, if we can't get something in before February.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, that's great.
Thanks, Fiona.
Okay, any other questions from online?
Hi, Keith Brand, Amplitude Energy again. You mentioned the competency of personnel and including roles and employees, roles and responsibilities of employees, contractors, etc. in there. You referenced UK guidelines on the competency for well personnel, but within the RMA regulations, you don't refer to any specific personnel in there. But is it going to be per likes of the UK guidelines, where it's actually only personnel that actually contribute to well integrity that need to be included, and not everyone? Otherwise, you're going to have a standard list of position, roles and responsibilities that everyone will submit. But it surely should only be personnel who actually have any role with well integrity needs to be included.
I think I had that question correctly. It's personnel that are involved in the planning and execution of the well operations. So that would really come to the title holder to define who those people are. I gave some examples of what we would think they would be. So I would expect that your submission would explain what positions would need to have those competencies defined.
Yeah. So within the OE UK guideline, the leadership and supervisory roles, they supply a table of positions in there. Is that going to be acceptable to NOPSEMA, that table of personnel?
If that table describes your company, then that would be acceptable, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have a hand up for Mark Price.
Yeah, hi, Mark Price from NOPDA. I just thought I would take the opportunity as well to just point out section 105 of the remade regulations, which relates to providing copies of relevant documents and reports to the titles administrator as well. It's not a new requirement, it's come across from the old regs, but just thought I'd take the opportunity to remind people of that, that requirement.
Thank you, Mark.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Any further questions from online?
Sorry, quick one. Radek here from Radek Dolecki from Santos. Just following up on that point you made there, Mark. I assume you guys are interested only in the final accepted documents as opposed to any submission we make to NOPSEMA, which includes obviously the initial submission and which might change.
The requirements for any written documents given to NOPSEMA, it does include well operation management and plans. I would assume would probably be more interested in the completed documents, but we might just need to get back to you on that one.
That'd be great, thanks.
Okay, any more burning questions out there? All right, excellent. I think we're coming to the end here. If anyone does have additional questions they want to send through, you can add that to the chat or contact us as well directly through our focal points. But I'll wrap this up nice and early. It's been good to give you all back some time in your day. Thank you very much for taking the time to come along to our sessions, and we will obviously have our last session coming up at the end of February. Well, we'll also look at whether we want to put another one into March if there's still some areas that people would like some more clarification on. Please do have a look at the FAQs that we have on our website. Please feel free to forward the link onto others in your organisations that may find the content in this useful. We will make sure that we communicate when our documents are up for consultation through that website and make available anything additional that we can put up there as we go along. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you to my presenters today. That's been a really useful session, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.